when God said, I'm going to give you a son, and he gives him the son, Abraham could have thought he was crazy when he said that. No, I'm too old to have a son. But God had the bigger picture and plan. God had the plan. So Abraham goes on, and Isaac is born. And they just couldn't stop. Sarah and Abraham just couldn't stop laughing. That's why his name was Isaac. Laughter. They thought it was just so funny that God gave them a son so late in their years. And I'll be honest, if I seen a 100-year-old walking around with a baby son, I'm probably going to laugh myself. But just hope that they don't hit me. So we go on, and it comes time to where Jesus looks at Abraham and says, okay, now I've given you the gift, but I need you to give it back. And we have some fathers in here. If somebody came to you and said, I need your son, you've got to find a shotgun and a knife or whatever else you can find to hit a brick across his head. Because you're not touching my son.
That's right.
But Abraham was just like, okay. Because Abraham had the faith. Abraham knew that God wasn't just speaking to hear himself speak. God was speaking with a purpose.
That's right.
God speaks to us with a purpose, and if he says it, you better do it. Because if you don't, you're going to be miserable. I've been there. So Abraham says, okay, let me know when. And he tells him when, and he goes walking up this mountain to go and slay his son. And that's when I want to emphasis on that chapter 7, that chapter 8, chapter 9. This is when Isaac is kind of questioning Abraham. They're walking, and he goes, behold the fire and wood, but where's the lamb? Abraham in verse 9, he wasn't just cupcaking it. He wasn't saying, well, Isaac, he wasn't trying to beat around the bush and say, well, no, he wasn't doing that. He knew God was going to provide. Amen. And that's why he said, my son, God will provide himself a lamb. Because Abraham knew he wasn't going to lose his son that day.
That's right.
Because he was obeying what God was telling him. So he kept going, he kept walking, and he gets there, and sure enough, what do you know? He gets there, and he's going to follow through on what God had told him, and that's when it says, no, Abraham, don't touch him. Because you feared me, you obeyed me. Here's a ram. He gave it to him. God provided because he obeyed.
Yes.
He obeyed. He followed. And see, today I want to talk about a puzzle. You see, the process of puzzle making begins with a perfect picture laid out on some thick material, cardboard. Okay? That picture is then broken down into pieces, put into a box, and sent off for us to put together. Okay? Well, that same concept applies when God, he knows our perfect picture. He knows exactly what's laid out for where we are to go, what are we going to do, what we're going to see, things we're going to go through. He knows the picture. He's got it. Amen. But throughout our life, the pieces get broken down. Throughout our lives, we go through some pieces that God gives us, but we also venture off and go through our own pieces. And we're trying to fit them in the puzzle. We can venture away from where God wants us.
That's right.
But God's bringing the picture together. See, my pieces might be different than your pieces.
That's right.
My picture's different than your picture.
That's right. Yeah.
But with God, we can find the picture. We can put the picture together, and we'll know it. Because, see, God knew that picture because, as it says in Psalms, it says, you saw me before I was born. Every day of my life was recorded in your book. Every moment was laid out before a single day had passed.
That's right. That's right.
That right there gives me the confidence that I don't have to worry. I don't have to stress over things that's going to happen, because as long as I depend on God, as long as I'm following him, he's going to take me along the brick road, the path that he has called me to go.
That's right.
He's going to take me, and I'm going to find my pieces and start putting them together as life goes on.
Right.
And I might try to get my own pieces, and I might try to put them in there, but it's okay, because his pieces is going to override my pieces. His pieces are going to hold together. And see, that's how I know it. And I love how in the Bible, there's some parallelism that we see here. Because you see, if you go up a couple verses, and it says in verse 2, and it says, verse 3, it says, Abraham got up in the morning, And he had 2 young men travel with Isaac that day. And then in the 4th verse it says, then on the 3rd day, Abraham lifted his eyes. So 2 men traveled with Isaac, who was the sacrifice that day. And on the 3rd day, basically the picture was put together. And if we fast forward a little bit, I know of one man who was the only son who was sacrificed, who came to us as a sacrifice. So 2 men on that same day traveled with him on his home on the cross. And on the 3rd day, the picture came together when Jesus rose up.
Come on now, man.
Parallelism, if I can call it right there, for the fact that we know that Isaac now, see, Isaac was a sacrifice being used because he was the possession of Abraham. He was everything Abraham loved. Abraham wanted a son. Sarah wanted a son. And God gave it to him. See, that's what I'm talking about today. We have to lay our possessions down.
That's right.
We have to lay down our pieces and our plans for our lives. We have to be willing to lay them down in order to focus up on what God has for us.
That's right.
Because if we're too busy caught up in doing our own way, we're too busy caught up going our own path, we're too busy saying, oh, well, I got time for God. You're going to run out of time and you're going to get left behind. And I'm not willing to risk that. I'm not risking my eternity for my own worldly pieces when I can trust God's pieces to take me where I need to be.
Amen.
And see, that's when it comes to, sometimes you need to go by yourself for a little bit to recognize how to put your pieces together. You see, I might be wrong, but I don't think there's a puzzle making club. If there is, I'm sorry. You guys keep doing what you're doing. Puzzle making club. Most people, when you do a puzzle, you do it by yourself, okay? Because you're able to focus on putting the pieces where it needs to be. So that's when I say isolation brings about fruition, okay? See, you have to isolate. You have to lose some people, okay? You got to separate yourself in order to let God's plan flourish through you, in order to put the pieces together to the puzzle in order of your life. You have to separate yourself. Lose some friends. Lose a phone for a little bit. Cut off social media. Take a fast. Isolate
Preach.
yourself. Break yourself down to build yourself back up to where God wants to be. Because that's what he is, a way maker. He's the builder, the author. So follow him and see where your puzzle leads. Amen.
Amen.
And so we're laying down our Isaacs because that was his test. That was Abraham's test. That was Abraham's test. And it clearly said it. It said test. Abraham could have been just like us and said, no, I want to keep my son. But he didn't because he had the faith. We have to have the faith through our pieces because we go through times, we go through pieces where maybe things aren't fitting the right way. And you'll know it because you'll start doing your plan. You'll start going to that job that you thought was everything you ever wanted. It was a dream job. You love to do it. I wanted to be a sports commentator. I went and did a little thing, and I did not feel God in it at all. That was him saying, hey, turn that way. And I didn't. Because, see, our plan is going to do nothing but make you miserable.
That's right.
But God's plan is going to grow you to a higher level to where
Amen.
you feel him every day. Every time you pop in work, if you're doing what God wants you to do, it'll be like the best day of your life.
Amen.
That I can assure you. And see, when I'm going with the puzzle is, when you bring the puzzle into context, you bring the puzzle and you're putting it together, you can be like this puzzle where I can stay it together. The pieces fit. Pieces fit just where I want them to. Just like that. And it says, Jeremiah 29:11. It says, for I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you hope in a future.
Yes.
29:11. That's God confirming that he has a plan. But see, the problem is, this puzzle is just pieces held together like that. And so if we don't have anything holding our pieces together, it starts breaking down.
Yes, it does.
And then we have to start over and pick up the pieces. Well, I'm telling you, while you're down there picking up the pieces, you might as well get on your knees and look up to the Father himself. Because see, the difference is what this puzzle is, it's held together with some glue.
That's right.
This piece is, and it's centered over to Jesus Christ, because he's the center of our puzzle, of our picture. picture.
That's right. Come on now.
And you see, I can do whatever with this. I can float this thing.
Come on now.
I can do like that
Come on.
right there. But you know, because it's got some substance to it. It's got something sticky to hold in the cracks and the crevices. It gets deep down in the pores and it holds everything together. And you see, when we put our pieces together and we center it around Jesus Christ, and He gets in our cracks and our crevices, He gets in where our brokenness was, He can all put the whole thing together. And now we're doing what God said. Now we're doing what God wants for us because we have Him holding it all together. I might have some broken pieces. I might have some good pieces, but He's holding all the pieces together to show me where it is.
Yeah.
Because that's what He is. He's our substance that we need in every day of our life. Every single day of our life. And He says it in Ephesians, He said, instead, speaking the truth in love, we will grow to become in every respect the mature body of Him who is the head, that is Christ. From Him, the whole body, joined and held together by every supporting ligament, grows and builds itself up in love as each part does its work.
Come on.
As each part does its work, it gets held together. God, our substance. See, look at a train. Think of a train. It has individual carts that at any point, if it was to unhook, they would just go off on their own little path. They would find a different track. But all them tracks connect somehow. So that's why that train sticks together and goes as one through wherever it goes. And we got on a train in New York the other week. All the way to New York. I promise you I never lost a cart. Never lost a cart because I went to the back of the train to the food cart the entire time. But that train was held together with binding. And that's God.
Yes, God.
It's like a carousel. Carousel always goes around and circles back. So if we're letting enemy get in us, we're letting enemy get a ticket to our carousel in our life. We're letting that addiction get a ticket to our carousel in life. We're letting that depression get a ticket to our carousel in life. We're letting that worryment, that anxiety get a ticket to our carousel in life. Then what are we doing? It's just going to keep coming back around.
Right.
But if they don't get a ticket, they don't get to go to the booth. They're banned from the park. They're not getting on our carousel because all we want is positivity on our carousel. We want Jesus Christ on our carousel. You see, I want to go through it all with Jesus. I don't want to go through it with the world. Amen.
Yes.
You see, He didn't say that you're going to go through the fire. He didn't say I'm going to put the fire out. Okay? He didn't say I'm going to move the lions. No, he said I'm going to go in the fire with you. With Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego.
Yeah.
He said, don't worry, Daniel, I'm going to go in the lion's den with you.
Yeah.
He said, David, you got a rock? We're going to a sword fight? Don't worry, I'm with you. I'm with you. That's what he said. So God is with us. And all it takes is us having the faith. Having the faith that no matter what our pieces go through, He's given us the peace to trust Him, to continue going, no matter what. And that's what my sermon was about today. It was short, I know, but that's what the sermon was about. That's what it is. We have to know God's making a way. God's working every day of our life. God's working. Trust Him. Have the faith in Him. That He knows the bigger picture we don't see.
That's right.
We don't see the picture. He sees the picture.
Yeah.
And you don't see my picture, but trust me, I know who does.
That's right.
And that's who I'm going with. Because He says who I am. That's who I am. Like that song says, I am who He says I am.
Amen.
The world's going to tell me one thing. The devil's going to tell me one thing. The devil's going to tell me I can't go do that. God's going to say, come on, I'm with you. Let's go do it.
Yeah.
That's what God's going to say. The devil's going to tell you you're worth nothing. God's going to say you're worth everything. God's going to say you're too broken. You've made too many mistakes to be used. God's going to say I can use every mistake. That's some of the pieces. That's some of the pieces right here in this corner for the bigger picture.
Yeah.
Your mistakes, that's okay. That's going to reach somebody.
That's right.
That's a testimony that He's going to put in your life. If you would stand with me.